I always knew you'd make something of yourself one day.
Yeah, just so you know, it's not my first lost city. Just...
Oli Welsh, we are two people who have played and completed Uncharted 4. So let's talk about that. And also, let's keep spoilers to a minimum for everyone who's still waiting to play. You reviewed the game for Eurogamer. What did you think of it?
I really liked it. I had a lot of fun with it. I think we're in a bit of an odd place with this one because you expect diminishing returns as a series like this goes on.
Yeah.
And to an extent you get them because Uncharted set out a template very well, and then Uncharted 2 was this amazing distillation of what Naughty Dog were trying to achieve, I think, with their cinematic action-adventure gaming. And I remember it really stunned everyone at the time. And then Uncharted 3 sort of tried to outdo Uncharted 2 and it couldn't manage it and maybe went a little bit over the top in the process.
Yeah, I feel like 3 started strong, but in its second act, it just kind of, for me anyway, it lost the plot a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, personally, I feel like all of the first 3 Uncharted games lose the plot towards the end. I know there are differences of opinion about that. But, so, yeah, you're never going to have a game that is going to make another Uncharted game that's going to make the impact that Uncharted 2 did again. Mm-hmm. That said, I do believe that they've actually delivered the best game in the series by some distance, actually.
Yeah.
For a couple of reasons. I think it's better plotted.
Yes.
And I think it's much more grounded and coherent, and while still retaining that sense of really epic, spectacular high adventure, it doesn't tip over into the absurd.
It's much more confident in its storytelling, I feel.
Well, you can really tell that it comes from Neil Druckmann, who also he co-wrote this and directed it, and he also co-wrote and directed The Last of Us. And I think you can sense that in the way this game just has the confidence, like you say, to actually tone it down a bit. And to bring the drama down a couple of pegs and to bring the stakes down a couple of pegs and still make it work.
Well, I feel like in part that's just due to the nuances that it kind of it can get across with the technology now, the nuances in the performances, which I honestly think are possibly the best I've seen in any game ever. I mean, the characters just look incredible.
Yeah, the performance capture is remarkable, and the performances themselves are really good as well. And you've got that sort of intimacy you've built up with the characters as well. At least apart from Sam Drake, the brother, who's a new character. So you feel very comfortable with them, and the performance capture is really amazing. The facial expressions, the little tiny gestures, and changes of expression during the conversations and stuff are really beautifully done during the cutscenes.
I remember because I went to play the game and to speak to the co-director Bruce Straley and Nolan North last week, and Bruce Straley actually said that they only had 100 meg left on the Blu-ray disc when everything was finally put on it, and I can well believe it looking at it, because not just from the motion capture and the performance capture, but the entire game. I mean, as you'd expect from an Uncharted game, it just looks incredible.
Yeah, it is a really, really beautiful game, and they've pushed it as far as they possibly can on PlayStation 4, as you would expect from Naughty Dog. But I mean, not just technically beautiful, but the way they just arrange these really beautiful painterly landscapes everywhere you look, and all these wonderful reveals when you stick your head out of a doorway or a cave mouth, or turn a corner and you see these it looks like an oil painting of these sort of highlands or these rugged island mountainscapes.
I remember there was a moment where you're in Scotland fairly early on in the game, and you're climbing up quite a steep cliff on the coastline, and I remember turning around at one point for no particular reason, but seeing a whale far off on the horizon. I know, because it was so small. I mean, I almost missed it myself, but it was such a small thing, and for obviously, not them planning, they weren't planning on every single player seeing it, but to just include that little detail for the people that did see it was really quite cool, I thought. It's
got that real sense of a lavish production where no expense is spared on any aspect of it, and like they render these interiors of a few rooms with just exquisite care, and just making sure they think about every single object and where it's placed.
Did you feel like the new open sections, more open sections made much of a difference to the
They don't make
to the overall
a
experience?
practical difference to the gameplay. Let's not kid ourselves. This isn't an open world game or a sandbox game. It's a linear action adventure that's about set pieces and about sort of pushing forward towards your goal. But it did make a difference to the feel of the game for me. I didn't feel as boxed in. I appreciated the fact that I could take a few different routes through some levels, or just that there were ledges that didn't necessarily lead anywhere. Yeah, I liked that. I also liked they've made some very subtle differences to the way the climbing works to make it feel just a little bit more like real climbing. So you're guiding Drake's hands quite organically as you climb along.
Yes.
And I like the feel of it. I like the feel that they just that little tweak of extra freedom that makes you feel like you're on an adventure rather than on a fairground ride, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like they did something similar with the combat mechanics, specifically the melee mechanics. I mean, I've never really been much of a fan of Uncharted's combat, and I'm still not. Basically, towards the end of the game, I get very fed up with the combat.
Yeah.
But I feel like there were a few little tweaks here and there in Uncharted 4 that it didn't feel quite so frustrating this time around. And I feel like there was actually less of it, because sometimes it's a real slog towards the end. Yeah,
it's still the weak point of the game, to be sure. They've reeled it in a little bit. They've adjusted the melee and a few things about the gunplay. The most important thing they've done is that not on every combat encounter, but on quite a few of them, they've set up these quite large open areas, and they've included stealth elements so that you can try and take as many of the guards out through stealth as you can. And I actually found this like a quite a lot more enjoyable way to play than just running and gunning in the typical Uncharted way. Or you would sort of take out half the guards through stealth and then maybe mop up the last few when there weren't quite so many.
When you eventually got caught, as is my case.
So that made quite a big difference for me, but it still has a tendency, as they all do towards the end, of just chucking loads of very heavily armoured enemies toting rocket launchers and miniguns at you.
Yeah.
And turning into these sort of wars of attrition, which it's just not a good enough shooter to get away with.
To warrant that, yeah. I don't know what it is about that. I mean, I feel like in part maybe it's because I don't think the series has ever had a compelling enough villain. Like Nathan Drake is a brilliant hero, and he's well rounded and he's brilliantly brought to life, but he's never had, I don't think, someone that can match him. And I don't know whether, because the end bosses are always a little bit throwaway, and maybe it's just that the combat is a way to compensate for that. I don't know.
A little bit, but also I don't know that it was. So you're right. Like in narrative terms, the villains are a little bit lackluster, but also the enemy designs. There's really nothing going on there, and it's sad to say there's nothing new going on in Uncharted 4. You've got the guy in the t-shirt who's going to be really easy to beat. And the guys with the red berets on just to make the headshots easier, and then the guys with the helmets who are going to take a little bit longer. And there's nothing much. Everybody takes their appointed places and sticks their heads out in a little rotor for you to take pot shots at them. So there's nothing very exciting going on with the AI or the enemy design, and that's still true. I think it's not a shooter. Do you know what I mean? It's an all-round action adventure, and where the previous games too went wrong is that they lent too heavily on the combat towards the end of the game, and all of them I think had these really, really long, quite turgid sequences of just throwing endless enemies at you. And Uncharted 4 probably only has 3 or 4 moments like that in the last 4 or 5 chapters, and it's nothing like certainly not as bad as Uncharted 1, but I don't think it has that same tendency.
Voila.
Oh, all right. These could be trade winds, and these look like latitudes, and I would guess that we are packing our bags again, Boyle. know you don't have to hit every fence. I'm doing my best!
I like the theme of the game as well. Like here, we have to tread a little bit carefully around spoilers, but
Yeah.
we're after pirate treasure this time,
Yeah.
rather than a sort of mystical lost city. Although there's something a little bit like that later on in the game. But
Yeah, there's always a lost city.
no, it felt very, very appropriate.
Yeah.
Rather than going sort of deep into ancient legend, we're dealing with the pirates of the sort of 17th, 18th centuries here.
Yeah,
And,
fairly recent.
Obviously, that whole theme suits the kind of rakish era of the games very well.
I quite liked the new sort of thing whereby I've always enjoyed going back through Drake's journal as the game sort of progresses. You get new little notes and doodles and things like that, which obviously feed into the puzzle solving too. But now there's little optional asides and conversations that you can have, which will actually add pages to the journal that other people might not have. And I had quite a fun sequence involving a lemur, which ended up, it was quite sweet. I like that. It as you said, it kind of adds to the level of familiarity that you have with the characters. And I don't know, it doesn't do anything obviously, but it's just quite nice. Quite a nice little touch, I thought.
Don't shoot at me!
So, but I think I came away really liking the game, and I think the thing that I was worried about was that a thing that you do worry about a little bit with Naughty Dog is that they're so the polish is so extreme that the game, especially when it gets to its fourth iteration, can lose a little bit of its charm.
Yeah.
But I think they really successfully managed to avoid that this time. I think the real takeaway for me with Uncharted 4 is that Naughty Dog have managed to end the series gracefully. They've given us a game that really sums up and is a fitting tribute to the games that went before, is actually better than them in most ways, but that also concludes it elegantly without betraying or without over-egging what's gone before, and that's actually really hard to do. And I think it's probably only possible to do when you've got really talented people who've actually made their minds up to end something, which very few video game creators, no matter how much some of them might want to, they never actually have the courage to say, all right, this is it, I'm stepping away, I'm done for good. So yeah, that really impressed me, apart from the fact that it's just a great video game that I thoroughly enjoyed and really beautiful. Hats off to Naughty Dog for stepping away from Uncharted in the most dignified and spectacular way they could.
Sit Parvis Magna.
Sit Parvis Magna.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask the important question first.
Okay.
How do you feel about them making Nathan Drake's butt bigger for 4?
Make his butt bigger.
It's a little bit bigger.
It's a little bit. I'm not as interested in it being bigger as I am in it being a bit older.
Yeah, and wiser. Maybe that's where he stores all his wisdom.